age of rising roofs and restless markets, when fortunes were wagered not in gold but in ink and signatures. There lived 3 pigs who longed for homes of their own. They had outgrown the narrow pen of their youth, and each dreamed of walls that would stand firm against the long march of years. The world beyond was wide, filled with promise, but also shadowed by hidden flaws that only time could reveal. So it was that they set out together, hopeful yet untested, to seek their place in a land where every choice carried weight. And waiting for them, with a smile too sharp to trust, was a wolf who dealt not in teeth but in contracts. He stood tall in a pressed suit, his eyes gleaming with the hunger of quick deals and quicker cash, greeting the 3 pigs as though he had long awaited their arrival. With smooth words, he spoke of markets that moved like storms and homes that would vanish if not purchased at once. "Time is not your friend," he warned, his voice low and urgent, as he guided them toward choices not yet understood. The wolf showed them a modest house on a quiet street, its walls neat and newly raised, its price shining brighter than its substance. "A fine beginning," he said smoothly, tapping the paperwork as though it were already fate. The youngest and middle pig stepped forward at once, eager, speaking quickly of ownership and moving in before the chance could slip away. But the eldest lingered at the edge of the yard, studying the structure with a patient eye, noting the lightness of its frame and the hurried seams of its work. It was made of straw, and though the wolf pressed urgency like a closing door, something about the house felt off, as though it was already falling apart. The youngest pig stepped forward as the wolf's voice quickened, closing in on the moment like a tightening jaw. A rare opportunity. His pen was ready, as if the choice had been made before they arrived. He spoke of rising prices and buyers' markets. Impatience took hold, and soon the papers were signed in haste. The wolf's smile deepened, not for the home, but for the cash commission that was now on its way. Still deal-hungry, the house showings went on. Now this house was taller than the first, and dressed in sharper lines of modern wood. It gleamed beneath the daylight, its edges precise, its promise bold. "Stronger," he said quickly, circling it as if already measuring the profit it might bring. "Built for those who think ahead, who do not waste time hesitating." The middle pig's eyes caught the shine at once, and the idea of progress settled in before thought could question it. The wolf spoke faster now, each word pressing like a closing window, and the air itself seemed to tighten around decision. The wolf circled them once more, laying the contract across the hood of his polished car, as his voice softened into something almost reassuring. "A sound investment," he said. "The kind that does not wait." The wooden house stood behind them like a promise made too quickly. But the eldest lingered at the edge of the yard, studying the house with a careful gaze, noting the lightness of its frame and the hurried work in its walls. It was made of wood, fast and simple in its making, and though the wolf applied pressure, something about the house felt weak, as though it was rotting from within. The pen met the page quickly, and the wood-framed house was bought in a moment of impulse. The wolf collected the documents with a calm smile, tucking them away with practiced ease. Behind him, the house stood in the light, still new and bright, though something unseen seemed already at work within its walls. The wolf checked his watch, as if time itself was an enemy, then led the eldest pig to see another home. But the pig only looked it over, and calmly declined, asking to see another. The wolf moved on, showing a second, then a third, but the pig gave each a careful look and turned them down. They came to a house that stood heavier and steadier than the rest, solid in its strength, and unmoved by the rush around it. The eldest pig stood before the final house, a solid structure of concrete block, heavier and quieter than the others they had seen. He studied it with careful eyes, noticing the strength in its walls and the patience in its build, as though it had been made to endure rather than impress. The wolf began his usual talk of timing and opportunity, but the eldest pig no longer seemed swayed by it. He walked the perimeter of the home, testing its stillness with a quiet nod, as if weighing not just price but years. The structure stood firm and unmoved, and in its silence there was a certainty that did not need persuasion. Irritated, the wolf spoke of closing quickly, of markets shifting and chances slipping away. But the eldest pig only listened without hurry. He had inspectors on the way, owls who studied the foundation, the walls, and the way the house met the ground, confirming what his own eyes had suspected. The structure held firm under every test. The eldest pig took his time, reading each line as if it carried weight beyond ink, while the wolf waited with impatience beside him. There were no hurried warnings now, only the sound of pages turning, and the steady presence of a house that did not flinch under scrutiny. And when the pen finally moved, it did so with certainty. Thus the 3 pigs were parted by choice and structure. The youngest pig took the house made of straw, light as dry grass and quick to build. The middle pig claimed the wood frame house, simple and swift, raised with hurried hands beneath the sun. And the eldest pig, steady of mind and patient of hoof, secured the concrete home, heavy and enduring as carved stone. And so came the test of time, silent and relentless as the turning of the world, unseen at first yet ever present in its work. As soon as the winds shifted, destruction reached the youngest pig's house made of straw. The walls, light and brittle, offered no real resistance to the weather. Gaps formed where bundles had been loosely tied, and the slightest gust worked its way inside, unraveling the structure strand by strand. Rain found its way in without effort, soaking the walls until they sagged and softened, losing what little shape they had. Within a short time, the house no longer stood as shelter, but as scattered pieces of what it once tried to be. The wooden house was next to feel the weight of the world. What had once been new and bright began to weaken as the seasons passed. Termites crept through the walls, and the wood began to rot and bend out of shape. Boards sagged and joints failed until the house no longer stood strong, but slowly fell into damage and decay. What once supported weight now gave way under the slightest pressure, as if the house itself was being erased. Strength was replaced with hollow weakness, and every corner carried the certainty of collapse. At last came the house of concrete. The eldest pig's home stood strong against the passing of years. Storms came and struck at it, rain fell hard upon it, and wind pressed against its walls, yet it did not yield. It held its shape through every season, steady and unmoved, as time moved around it. Where the other homes had weakened and fallen, this one remained firm and strong. And in the end, time showed its judgment without favor. The straw house fell apart, and the wood house grew weak. The youngest and middle pigs were left looking for new realtors, seeking another chance in a world that kept moving. No one heard from the wolf ever again. And so the lesson was learned, as old as stone and plain as truth. Haste buys a home for a moment, but patience buys one for a lifetime.